RITC Cybersecurity, empowering businesses with robust cybersecurity protection.
Welcome to Cybered Reality. I'm Mari Cherry. Cybered Reality is cybersecurity tips and tricks for everyone, where we unravel the mysteries of cybersecurity one bite at a time. From digital heists to hacker exploits, we uncover online threats and the strategies to stay ahead. Whether you're an IT pro, business owner, or just safeguarding your personal data, this is your guide to the cyber world.
Hello, I'm Mike Rotundo. I am the co-host of Cybered Reality, brought to you by RITC Cybersecurity, small business partner in proactive cybersecurity. We are glad you joined us today. Our goal on this podcast is to provide information that both the cybersecurity professional and those just interested in cybersecurity can use. Today, we are going to go through some cybersecurity news and discuss checklists. We're talking about basic security again, Mari?
Yes.
All right.
We got a long checklist, so we're gonna. Okay, what is steganography in cybersecurity? Practice of concealing data within another file or medium. It's different from encryption, so I put some bullet points in here because that's exactly what I thought at first. Was like, isn't that just like encryption? But I guess not.
Nope.
Unlike encryption, which scrambles data to make it unreadable, that's what encryption is apparently. It disguises malicious code inside harmless-looking images, videos, or audio files, making it nearly invisible to traditional security tools. So that's not creepy at all. It's like an invisibility cloak.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, why cyber criminals use stenography? Invasion of security tools, hidden codes inside images, bypasses antivirus and firewalls.
So let me just give you a little history real quick, and then we'll go through the rest of your list.
Yeah.
But steganography predates the computer.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so it used to be that you would paint an image, paint a painting or an image over a message, or you would embed it somehow in the message. It would be it was a way of communicating clandestinely by foreign intelligence services. Way like I'm talking 16, 15, 13, Middle Ages kind of stuff. I mean, just old school.
That's cool.
Encryption started with the Greeks. They used these certain rods and had paper wrapped around them. And I mean, just some amazing stuff.
Really?
So a lot of this stuff actually predates computers. So steganography has been around for a long time. It's just been morphed into being used on computers more and more. And it's actually been around for a while. So,
Cool.
And why it evades security tools is because security tools are not looking inside a picture all the time.
Oh, okay.
And that's why you don't click on it. Some hot individual, be they male or female, sends you a picture and you were so inclined, you do not click on said picture unless you know them, because you don't know what's in there. Or if they send you an email, or if you're getting these random emails like I'm getting on LinkedIn from some very attractive young lady who claims to work for Meta in San Francisco, and was educated in Cambridge. And well, I mean, she could be a chatbot, or she could be some guy chain smoking in Guangzhou, or Tehran.
I'm gonna go with that one.
Yeah. When you've been around long enough, you're like, let's see. I'm an old guy with a beard. She's about 30 years old and really hot. Not happening. So nice try, guys. Try something better next time.
Low detection rate. Traditional security scans rarely inspect images for malware. Why, though? Why?
Well, the default is to turn off inspect full files, and a lot of enterprise grade AV will not inspect OCRs or will not inspect images files because it's not expected. With the prior company that I worked in, we actually used X-rays images that we were able to embed code and upload into the medical company's system off the web, because they had this thing where you could upload files. So we would actually embed it as part of a pen test to show that it was possible. And their antivirus system at the time did not catch it.
But they have some now that do.
They do have some now that do. But if you're, working with a legacy AV, you may not.
Stealthy payload delivery. Malware stays hidden until extracted and executed.
Yes.
That's a bummer.
Yep.
But yeah, that's pretty common though, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Bypasses email filters. Malicious images don't trigger standard phishing detections.
Right.
Hey, though, this seems obvious. This seems
Well, but you're trained in this, so there's a lot of people that don't take the training. They don't understand what can be done. You live this life with me. I'm beat this into your head, for lack of a better term,
but that's what I'm saying is
which you
from
in turn inflict torture on your children with, and your family.
they hate it. They hate it. It's okay. It's just because I love them.
Yeah.
But from this from this perspective, even it seems like there should be a better solution for that.
Well, the humans are always going to be the weakest link,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you can't 100% guarantee through automated solutions that someone's not going to do something stupid.
Yeah, that's true.
So
But is there another is there there's gotta be something out there, right? That helps fix this problem.
well, I mean, you could air gap computers and not allow them to even get email, not allow people to surf the web. I mean, that's why you want to put things like SASE solutions on computers that keep you from going to places. Yeah, it's actually SASE.
So
SASE solutions on computers. It's not that kind of SASE.
no.
It's
Okay.
but the idea is that will protect you and only allow you to go certain things and goes and protects your DNS and keep you from going to websites that you're not supposed to go to, that sort of
Got it.
thing.
I mean, that's how it is on my kid's phone.
Right.
She hates that.
Yeah.
But like isn't there some kind of in between? Something that could detect it just hasn't been made up yet.
Well, I mean, they do a really good job of detecting probably 99% of it, but there's still that. But you can keep in mind that for every, we spend all our time trying to figure out to defeat what is known and what is possible. They spend all their
Right.
time trying to figure out how to defeat what is known and then find out what is possible and find out keep in mind in IT, and as you well know, because you're one of us, you're very creative people, right? And
Mhm.
they're, and actually, I had a buddy of mine that used to do training for professionals, and he was saying that IT people are actually pretty closely aligned with artists as far as mentality because of
Okay.
the creativity.
Mhm.
And at least good IT people, not IT people that are just in it for the money. But yeah, I mean, there are those. But yeah, good IT people are.
Yeah. It just feels like we're always playing defense.
Well, we are, because we're not allowed to play offense.
But why can't we change the rules?
Well, so 2020 or so, Congress was
Mhm.
debating putting in this thing to allow offensive capabilities, which means if you hack me, I can hack you right back.
Oh, okay.
The problem is, there's two levels. So the problem is
Mhm.
in the private sector, because of the use of bot armies, like X just got hacked, right? And there was a Ukrainian IP address,
Okay.
but guaranteed $100 million that money was not, that IP address was not in the Ukraine, and it was not done by
Yeah.
Ukrainians. It was made to look like Ukrainians. But if you go back
Yeah.
and attack that IP, then you could be destroying some innocent's computer. Because remember, we talked about the Mirai botnets and all that kind of stuff a while back, and how they'll take over computers and they'll have these botnets of people that have
Yeah.
no idea they're being used.
Yeah.
So it would basically be a free fire zone, and
Yeah.
you would destroy the internet after a while. Now, on the converse of that, the federal government is very, very good at being offensive, and they do a lot of it. So,
Mhm.
they just don't want free fire. Then the other thing, and I talked about this in my first book, was that do you really want 535 lawyers figuring out how to do IT? I'm going to go with no.
Probably not.
No, I would say one professional cybersecurity person and his sidekick Mari are probably better than 535 lawyers. So,
Psychic. Outsmarting cyber threats with attack graphs. I'd never heard of this before.
No,
Not
this
in
is brand new.
way.
yeah, this is brand new.
So I thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
So the little snippet from this says cyber threats are growing more sophisticated and traditional security approaches struggle to keep up. Organizations can no longer rely on periodic assessments or static vulnerability lists to stay secure. Instead, they need a dynamic approach that provides real-time insights into how attackers move through their environment. So part of the reason I picked this one is because I think it's a great example of why our approach is so great, because we tailor to your business needs and the evolving cybersecurity landscape.
Exactly.
Next up is aggregated graphs. They
Mhm.
combine data from multiple security tools. like vulnerability scanners, identity management systems, cloud security solutions. What would be an example of identity management systems?
So identity management would be like Jump Cloud or Active Directory or one
Okay.
of those. It would be something that manages your identity. So when I create you as a user, you're stored in a central location. You have specific characteristics that control your access, what you can access, what you can't access, that sort of thing. So,
Okay.
so
Okay, they take a different direction, this says. These are purpose-built to model real-world attacker behavior. Okay. Might need you to explain that a little bit. With special focus on how threats evolve across systems. So purpose-built to model real-world attacker behavior. Can you give me an example of that?
that's kind of like the black box pen test we do. We pretend to be a cyber criminal. How would a cyber criminal approach this? So
Okay.
you look at it from that perspective. Like some of the when I was doing pen testing and back in when I was trained was to think like a cyber criminal. So I would look at it and say, okay, well, this system has X, Y, Z, Q, and this is where I can attack, and this is where I'm going to probe, and this is the recon I'm going to do, and that sort of thing. So you're going to try and take that knowledge, which is typically offensive, and apply it to your defenses. So you're going to analyze it and say, all right, well, this is where I can be attacked, so this is where I'm going to protect.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. What you need to do is learn the Patronus charm. And whenever something like that happens, you just say, expecto patronum, and it's taken care of. You don't have to worry about it.
Okay, so for those of us moguls, how do we combat this?
So what you really need to do, you're only going to use extensions that you get from a reputable source. Unfortunately, on the Google App Store, there's a lot of garbage and there's a lot of dangerous stuff. So you need to be really careful what you're adding to your browser, okay? Because it'll open you to drive-bys. Don't trust anything out there unless it's reputable. It used to be that it had to be signed by someone, and it's not that way anymore, at least not in Google. So be very careful where you get your web extensions from, because like we talked about a few minutes ago, they're trying to find everything that's possible that they can exploit. Now they're looking at web extensions. Whereas, so it's no longer iframes and fake DNS. Now it's everything. And then they're really the goal is to steal your credentials. And they want to figure out that, if you bank at B of A, they want to replicate B of A's extension, but you don't want to get B of A's web extension from the App Store. You want to get B of A's extension from B of A.
So that's a good way, is to go through like a direct website, not an app.
Yeah, don't go through an app. Yeah.
Never go through an app?
I don't use apps.
What?
Rarely. I rarely use apps. I have an app that turns on my misters in my patio. But someone steals those credentials. Yeah, okay.
Just turn them on randomly.
Just going to randomly turn them on.
Middle of the night. Yeah.
Okay,
so beware of suspicious attachments and messages, etc. We've talked about this a lot. Sometimes it's hard to know.
Yeah.
It also says avoid websites that could hide malicious content. But okay, how do you know?
That's a tough one. So you need to have like your antivirus software in your web browser that's going to warn you of that. Like Bitdefender will do it, or Avast will do it, or something of that nature. But yeah, and you don't go to a web browser that isn't HTTPS unless you can't, don't have any other choice, because then it's no longer a secure connection. But browsers are hit or miss, because if someone spoofs your DNS, you're going to go to wherever they tell you to do, and you're not going to know, because you're going to think, oh well, this looks just like we've been picking on B of A's browser, so we're going to go to B of A's browser.
It looks right.
URL, and it looks right. And that goes back to iframes and controls and all kinds of strange things. But so that don't just go wandering off. And here's another thing: when you go to Google and you search, or DuckDuckGo, or whatever your one of choice is, and you put in a search for something, don't click on the ones that say ad.
Why?
Because they're generally that's where the malicious stuff tends to be, is ad.
Okay. The campaign, which leverages social media to distribute malware, is tied to the region's current geopolitical climate.
Yes.
Positive Technologies researchers. I can't say this name. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Both of these, I'm going to butcher them. But two of these people
from Positive
said,
Technologies.
Right. In an analysis published last week, the attackers host malware in legitimate online file sharing accounts or Telegram channels set up specifically for this purpose, which is kind of what we were just talking about. They make it look real, but it's not.
Yep.
Those tricksy little hobbitses.
Yes,
The
they
links in turn redirect users to a version of the async these names.
Well, you're going to come across a lot more like this.
know.
Again.
Boogers. Putting that out there again. Malware
The
that
booger
has been yeah. See, that's a better one.
Yeah.
Async rat. Come on. They could get more fun.
Yeah.
Think Ninja Turtles or something cool. Okay. I'm gonna start over. The link in turn redirect users to a version of the async rat malware that has been altered to include an offline keylogger. Search for 16 different cryptocurrency wallet extensions and applications, and communicate with a Telegram bot. What is an offline keylogger? What is that?
So keylogger is going to log your keystrokes, but it's not.
What?
So what it'll do is it'll log all your keystrokes and then blast out at a certain point. It's not continually transmitting, so it's offline.
What is the point of that though? Why would
So
you
if
want that?
you can cancel passwords, you can get URLs, you can get how you're writing email, and you can pull out important data. So it'll tell you when you go in and put in, I'm going to www.bitcoin.com or whatever it is, and then you put in a password and a name and a password. It's going to track all that you did all that typing, and they're going to be able to see everything you do on the computer by logging your keystrokes.
Got it. Yikes.
So think about it this way: they're creating by using a keylogger, they're creating a sheet of music that you would play on a piano.
Why
Yes.
the modern Google workspace needs unified security. Explain.
Explain.
Explain. I'm just kidding. Okay, so they operate in silos, because I know what that is. Addressing individual risks without considering the bigger picture. This means attackers can still slip through the cracks, exploiting gaps between different tools that don't communicate with each other.
Right.
Can you give me an example of that?
So in the good old days, when you had servers in-house, you would have an Active Directory server and a domain and all that kind of stuff. So everything would be unified as far as how it was all connected, right? So you would have other tools, and the idea is that everything would go to a SIEM or something of that nature, and you would collect all your data and it would be aggregated.
Yep.
Now with mail in the cloud, like Google, like Microsoft, like whatever, you have this tool sitting in the cloud that only does mail for the most part.
Okay.
So what that means is that, you need to unify your tools into the Google workspace. And Google has gotten really good at creating a lot of tools in there. I don't know that they're quite at the level Microsoft is with AD and all that kind of stuff, but AD's been around forever. Active Directory's been around forever.
Was that something positive about Microsoft? You love Microsoft. We all know.
Yes, they are my favorite.
Favoriteest of all time.
Well, they stole AD from Novell, which created it originally. So just kind of like he stole DOS or bought DOS from IBM, and OS2 Warp became Windows, and so they've just kind of taken and built upon other people, because IBM didn't realize DOS would be worth anything or OS2 Warp would be worth anything. So
That sucks.
Yeah. Back in the old days, the Fiesta Bowl used to be sponsored by OS2 Warp. It used to be the OS2 Warp Fiesta Bowl.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Okay. Dang, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
Stuff like that happens.
So the idea is that you put together a bunch of tools and aggregate them in through Google, which we're going to be doing very soon with a new client, right? And then, learn this stuff quick, because it's going to be your job. So the idea is that we just have to. You can't just leave these things standalone and then have a separate, antivirus software and a separate this and a separate that. You need to be able to aggregate everything together, and you need to be able to do the controls on the users. You need to use the Google email controls. You need to be using the Google, all that kind of stuff. So the user controls and the mail filtering and all those other things. So a lot of people will just set up the Google Mail and then forget about it. So
what?
Yeah.
Why would they do that?
I don't know, because they didn't ask us.
Because they should.
Oh, everybody should ask us everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Last one.
Yeah.
THN Weekly Recap.
Yes.
THN, the Hacker News.
That is correct.
I didn't know what that was at first.
Yeah.
So just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
From 1.5 billion crypto heist to AI misuse and Apple's data dilemma. So,
A lot going on. That crypto miss was big.
yeah, you have more you would like to say about that?
No, why don't you talk about
This crypto heist?
it? Yeah.
Go for it. Let's hear what you got. I've done a lot of talking this go round.
No. The North Korean Lazarus Group basically is one of the APTs of North Korea, and they basically went and figured out a way to steal this $1.5 billion in crypto.
Yeah.
And you're going to see a lot more of that, a lot more crypto stolen, because it's easier to do. You can't go into a bank and steal $1.5 billion.
Not anymore.
No. And, even if you're a fan of Die Hard 3, you still can't break into the gold exchange and steal $1 billion worth of gold bars, because you will. Bruce Willis will come and hunt you down. So.
Yeah. Okay. In this article, they mention warm and cold wallets.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that means.
So Bitcoin lives in a wallet.
Uh-huh.
Now, I'm not an expert on Bitcoin, so, I assume a cold wallet.
Tuesday, so.
Well, thank you. I assume a cold wallet is an offline wallet, where a hot wallet is a online wallet. And that would seem to make sense to me.
Okay.
So, but I am not an expert in it. And if you have questions or comments,
That's what it means.
send your emails to info@ritccybersecurity.com. Please add links and steganography, because we'd love to, click on whatever you send us.
Absolutely. We click on everything.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter who it comes from. We click
100%.
on it.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
We practice good cybersecurity hygiene, and we click on everything.
Yes.
We show you what not to do.
Exactly. We live in this world, so you don't have to.
Do you have a detailed asset inventory? Is it up to date? What is a detailed asset inventory?
Detailed asset inventory is a list of everything that you own. The company owns every computer, every monitor, every USB, every phone, and
kind
router.
On that questionnaire we just did. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. How about software inventory? Go ahead.
Yeah. What is the approved software in your environment? What do you have? What's whitelisted? What's not allowed? What software do you own? What actual licenses do you own? And what freeware is out there?
Okay.
And that's important to know.
Yeah, for sure. What is a whitelist?
A whitelist is approved software.
Okay.
And the reason that's important is because you need to know what's licensed, but you also need to know what you're actually using, because there's a lot of times we'll come into companies and they're paying for a bunch of software that they don't use.
Yeah.
So I went into a company that had a several $100,000 installation of Sophos that was still in beta, had never been promoted to production, and had no idea. They just kept paying for it. They weren't even using it. And I was like, and they were looking for this new tool to do all this stuff. And I said, well, we've got Sophos right here. And they're like, we do? And they've been paying it for 5 years. But since they've had so much turnover in their IT environment, no one knew it.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
No one knew it.
Yeah. Just wait till our blog post about tools. That's coming out soon too.
Nice.
Yep.
Cool. Okay. What is an endpoint manager?
Endpoint manager manages endpoints.
What is an endpoint?
Endpoint is, your PC on your desk, or your laptop on your desk, or your phone. It's something that gives you controls and can set limits on what that device can do or can't do. So it pushes your antivirus. It allows you to do go certain things. It'll sandbox, viruses. It'll do all sorts of different things. But it's basically a way of controlling your endpoints and securing them.
It could also be like parental controls.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
They really love that. They really love that.
They do.
Get your teenager some parental controls.
Yes.
It's a real crowd pleaser.
Yes, it
is. A winner. Trust me.
Yes.
Okay, standard system configuration.
All right. So the idea is, depending on how small you are, you don't want to be like, hey, go to Costco or Best Buy and go buy a laptop. You want to say buy a laptop you want to provide a laptop to your employees that has certain things on it. X number of RAM, same size drive, the same software load, the same operating system, the same. The reason there's multiple reasons for doing that. One, it's secure. Two, if something breaks or you have a problem, it's easy to fix because what's already there. It's not some random, bootleg, whatever password manager that you've never heard of, and they're like, hey, it doesn't work, and then you just have to look at them and go, hey, well, maybe it's your flux capacitor, and you figure it out.
Risk assessments, internally or by a third party.
Yes. You need to look at your environment. We kind of touched on that with the graph thing, but you need to look at what your risks are. You need to understand your environment. You need to understand what controls you have in place, how they're in place, what things are missing, where your risk is, so you can you can allocate the appropriate amount of money to those risks as opposed to allocating it all over the place. So
yeah. And how would someone go about doing that?
They would engage a third party such as RITC Cybersecurity, or if you have the person in-house, someone with the skill set in-house, they could do it for you. But it's always good to get a third party assessment because they're going to see things that you don't see. It's kind of like, why Mari reads my documentation, because sometimes I write silver unicorns fly north during the equinox inside of a risk management policy, and that shouldn't be there.
Right. It does make it a little more fun, though.
It does, but it really messes up your SOC 2 auditor.
Yeah. Do you have a software and a browser whitelist policy? We just talked about that. Why do you need a policy, though? Why do you need a policy?
Because you need a policy so you can communicate to your users, this is what we do, and this is what we don't do, and this is the consequences for doing something else.
Right.
If you don't follow this policy, there are consequences.
Yes. Consequence for every action.
Right.
You got to have a baseline somewhere.
Yes.
Which is why policies are important.
Yes.
Okay. Have you removed local administrator access from your employees' workstations unless they are in an IT admin role?
So you don't want all your end users to be able to do whatever they want on their computer. Also, if they click on a phishing email or something like that, then once they do that, and it steals the credentials, it has admin access to that device, which allows it to do whatever it wants, and then can make it part of a bot army or whatever. So
bot army.
It was, but why not? We haven't done it in a while. That's it for today. Stay smart, stay safe, and remember, the only thing you should have unlocked is this podcast. Maybe your bank account. No, probably not your bank account.
No, just tell me.
Yeah,
don't leave it unlocked. I will keep it safe and secure.
Yeah.
So just give me that information. I promise you it'll be fine.
All right.